Yeah, I'm gonna need help on the pronunciation now.
He Jiankui. Yeah.
And then people call him
JK
JK.
is fine.
JK. And so he was a Chinese scientist. Um, did gene and please help me out if I butcher something, but did gene editing on two children, I think, and so ended up huge controversy. I mean, the scientific world, they were still in the embryos, right, and was trying to alter their genes to prevent them from getting HIV later in life. I think they lived in a region that had very high prevalence of HIV, and the argument was kind of putting in this safety measure. The scientific community recoiled. I think the arguments were this technology is not ready. You're also changing the genes. It's not like you're changing this for an illness that these children already have. It's kind of this predictive, preventative measure. JK ended up spending 3 years in prison. So the Chinese government seemed to, you had worldwide scientists reacting against it, and then the Chinese government seemed to see this negative attention and really crack down. And so JK was in jail for 3 years. Then he comes out, he starts a new lab, which I didn't know he was going to do that. I thought maybe he'd be in the penalty box for a very, very long time. And then it was like earlier this year, or well, okay, I'll let you tell the story. I mean, the two of you meet, and then for a moment in time, it looks like you were maybe going to start this type of company in China. So, well, why don't I let you tell the story? What was your relationship like with JK, and did I sum up most of those points? Okay.
Yeah, it's a good summary of his previous life and work. And I met him about 2 years ago through a mutual connection who is from Shanghai. And yeah, I was just as shocked as you are when I found out after prison he was going to go back to the germline editing space. I wanted to do more of that.
Can we define germline really quick for people?
Yeah, germline cells are reproductive related cells. So sperm, egg, embryos, really anything that's not a somatic cell. Somatic cells are basically anything that's not a germline cell. So like your eyes, your skin cells, your hair cells, those are somatic cells. So when you say somatic gene therapy, it's just targeting any of your maybe organs or your eyes. When you say germline gene correction, you're talking about anything to do with reproduction. So your embryo or even eggs. I guess sperm as well.
So you're doing this editing at this very early stage.
Yes, exactly. And just as the embryo is dividing cells very rapidly, you do it as early as possible. So as it divides, it has a healthy copy of the disease gene or corrected version of the disease gene as it divides into a full human being.
Okay. I know I cut you off. I knew we were going to say germline a lot. So I just wanted I wanted to throw that. So he comes out, he's doing this work, it catches your attention.
And I guess I didn't know too much about the details before that, so I don't specifically know what happened in 2018 and when the twins were announced, Lulu and Nana. But earlier this year we did have a very short-lived personal relationship, and then I was banned from China.
You announced on Twitter. I mean, if I'm going too far, let me know. But you announced on Twitter you were going to get married. It was kind of amazing. JK had the best Twitter account going on, or X account, whatever. He was doing these amazing posts. I kind of loved it. It was like biotech, same thing, influencer sort of style, and very funny. And then anyway, yeah, the two of you were publicly kind of getting together on X, and then I saw this story and I reached out to both of you. I wanted to go to China and
I did invite you to Beijing
and do a piece on all this, and then in the middle of it, I think you got married. You had a wedding ceremony.
Yeah, we had a ceremony.
You had a ceremony, and then you kind of came back to the U.S. for a minute, and then we're heading back to China on X. Looked like to go start a new biotech research lab or startup, and then like you said, you were not able to get into China. So the Chinese government must have seen all these things going on X and had some concerns.
Yeah, I don't want to comment too much on the relationship, but I do wish him the best. It's been for me, it's been a very wild ride. I've never had travel restrictions before, so when that happened to me, I was really confused and surprised, and you were one of the first people I talked to about it, and you wrote an excellent piece. I still read it once in a while just to
Yeah.
feel nostalgic, but yeah, it was a very strange experience. But I think I learned a lot from that.
I don't mean to trivialize anything, right?
Hmm.
I'm sitting here with a slight smile on my face. And it's your life, and I don't mean to. Only because it was dramatic
Yeah.
and like this whirlwind. So yeah, I was shooting a movie in Switzerland when all this happened. I remember were doing our shoot, and then I was interviewing you on the side, and then we were packing up our gear, and I was writing the story up because there were a lot of people in my journalism world that were fascinated by the story. I mean, JK has been this person that science writers have been interested in a lot, and then there was this whole in my head at that time. I was like, oh, well, this is fascinating. I think China will race ahead of the United States on this type of technology. And we talked about some of this,
Hmm.
but um, you could see, uh, like, obviously the US and China are competing on many fronts, but to me, the US has felt restrictive on this type of technology. You could see a world where China pushed dramatically ahead, and it looked for a minute like the two of you could be this like superpower, coming together to do this. And then so yeah, I don't mean I'm not even trying to really pry into your personal life, but obviously so that something changed and you decided to come do this in the US instead. Well, you got
Oh, I got a
banned.
heckle band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were like stuck in the Philippines for a few days, and then
Yeah,
yeah.
it was like the longest 5 days of my life because I have no experience with geopolitics. I grew up in Canada where it's very peaceful. And then I spent most of my life in Silicon Valley and then LA. And I was excited to spend more time in China because, I moved out when I was 4, I moved to Canada. So I was excited to learn more about the country. I hear about things, in the news, like they have a lot of cool robots and like drones that deliver food and bubble tea. So I was excited to see all those things.
Yeah.
And of course, see what's happening in the biotech side. But I think from a biotech perspective, at least on the pharma side, like there's eight pharma companies that have over a $200 billion market cap in the US. There's actually none in China. There's zero in China. And I feel like although China does well in a lot of things like manufacturing, um, robots, things like that, um, I don't know if biotech, from a market cap perspective, just looking at the fact that the US has, eight $200 billion market cap pharma companies and China has zero. I don't know if China is as aggressive there. I mean, surely they can. They have, from an embryo perspective, they have lots of IVF clinics. They have lots of embryos. They have lots of primate centers, lots of monkey embryos. Those are really good for research. Like monkey embryos, what you use to do preclinical research before you use human embryos, of course. And so they definitely have a lot of potential. But unfortunately, after my travel restrictions happened 3 months ago, I don't have access to, being in China or what's happening there, information on what's happening there on the biotech side. But I am super excited to be building this in the US. I think, despite the moratorium or the proposed moratorium, despite the federal funding ban over the last 13 years, I think some of the best talent and research on embryology, on genetic modification, like gene editing, gene correction, and germline cells, it's still happening in the U.S. and it's just being privately funded. And I spoke to a lot of those researchers, and we have a super exciting announcement coming up in later in September. But we're working with actually like 12 like amazing PIs, researchers in this embryology space, genetic engineering, gene editing, gene correction space for germline, even bioethics. We have a bioethics person on board now. So, I think we're moving ahead really fast, and it's all U.S. talent. And I think that U.S. still leads the way in this field, not just technologically, but also ethically.